Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Unity Church. And we also welcome all the Hooke family who have come from quite a distance. It's an honor for me to be officiating at this service for Peela Hooke, who was a friend of mine for many, many years, and she was a big supporter of my ministry, both here and elsewhere. So this is a holy day, and it's also a celebration day. I'd just like to mention that we're going to be having 4 readings, and these are being given by Peela's grandchildren. And the first one is Alex Hooke.
A reading from the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
She has put on invisibility. Dear Lord, I cannot see. But this I know, although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night, that you will take her gently by the hand and lead her on, along the road of life that never ends, and she will find it is not death but dawn. I do not doubt that you are there as here, and you will hold her dear. Our life did not begin with birth, it is not of the earth. And this that we call death, it is no more than the opening and closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms must be beyond this one where we rest momently? Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that, looking through the shadows, see that you and she and I are ever one.
The hymnals are under your chair. It's a brown book that looks like this. Now we're going to sing In the Garden because Peela, of course, was the most avid gardener you can imagine. And in my lifetime, I have never known anybody other than Peela who had a degree in botany. So it's number 89 in your hymnal, and we're going to sing only the first 2 verses. 2 verses of number 89. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he walks with me, he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there none other has ever known. He speaks and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me, he talks with me, he tells me I am his own. Joy we share as we gather there, none other has ever known. And Katie Hooke will give the next reading.
Messenger by Mary Oliver. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening of yeast, there the blue plums. Here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude to be given a mind and a heart in these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and the wren, to the sleepy dug-up clam, telling all over and over how it is that we live forever.
Before we have our final reading, I wanted to explain what this is. It's a letter from Reverend Elise Rosenberg that she wrote to Peela in 1958. And Reverend Rosenberg was the founding minister of this church. The church was founded in 1947. Peela often told me that how much high regard she held Elise Rosenberg. Elise was really her spiritual teacher, and Peela had quite a great awakening, a spiritual awakening, being taught by Reverend Rosenberg. So that's the context in which we hear this letter, read by Jimmy Stockman.
Hi all, my name is Jimmy Stockman, one of Peela's grandsons, and while I cannot be there in person, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be there in spirit and to read one of her letters to you. The letter today I'll be sharing is a letter found in a small knick-knack box at the top of Grandma's dresser. It was sent to her in 1958 from Elise Rosenberg, who was the founding minister at the Unity of Greater Rochester. Grandma recently had joined a congregation here and had quickly formed a deep bond with Miss Rosenberg. Unity launched Grandma's new spiritual journey, sparked by Miss Rosenberg and supported by Gary Bellinger, Harriet Baumeister, and others, and also so profoundly by Eleanor Celentani. This journey changed her life and all of the Hooke family. Here's that letter. Peela dear, God bless you. You are just one of the most precious of all the ones that have ever come into my life's experience, and I do thank God for it. Your complete honesty, your sincere desire and will to transform yourself into God's will being expressed openly to you and through you, the channel through which all of God's love, life, wisdom, and power have become positively and mightily active to help you succeed. As this takes place in you, your many outer blessings will take on a new glow because they will, to you, be filled with the glow of God's manifest presence. As this happens to you, your new attitude towards life as you express it, and your deeper appreciation of spirit, you will become a great blessing to your own world and will express in ever-widening circles this glorious spirit and so become a blessing to the whole world. You will receive this on Monday, and it will remind you that I am in prayer with many unity ministers and with silent unity. You will be there as I will be here, and our prayer therapy goes on in silent communion. Love you dearly, Elise R. That was a letter that changed all of the Hooke and our families, and I'm so glad for the opportunity to share this with everyone. While I'm not there in person, my thoughts are with everyone, and I share my spirit with all of you. Thank you so much.
In Unity, we have a little devotional booklet called Daily Word. And when I was the minister here, we would read the Daily Word in each Sunday service, and different people from the congregation would take turns reading. And Peela did it often. I'm trying not to stand too close to this. Peela read quite often, and she was already up in years at that point, but she gave the reading with a great deal of energy and enthusiasm. And afterwards, after the service was over, several times I heard people in the congregation say that they were amazed at her liveliness, her uplifted attitude. They felt that she was a role model for graceful aging and for vital living, no matter how old you are. So I wanted to mention that today, that she really was a radiant spirit. She radiated love and gratitude and praise for others and extreme generosity. Peela is in a class by herself. The second thing I'd like to say is a message to her great-grandchildren. There were many times when I went to visit your great-grandmother, and she had a table right near her kitchen, and your pictures were up on the wall right next to where she sat, taped there. Some were taped, and some were on a ledge in a little frame. And when you were born, she told me about it, how happy she was. And when your parents sent pictures, she showed me all your pictures. And she was so happy to have you great-grandchildren. She loved being a great-grandmother. That was very special to her. So I wanted you to know that she loves you so much, and still does, and you can feel her in her heart when you think of her. And there was a certain word that your great-grandmother used very often, and the word was wonderful. And the way she said it was, wonderful. And if she wrote it in a card, which I got a couple of times, the letters were this big, wonderful. So, children of God, you were wonderful in your great-grandmother's eyes. Thank you.
So in case it wasn't obvious, she's here today. She's here today. And particularly in the form of this mask, which was made by Casey, who took one of Mom's favorite shirts and made masks for us all. So we have a guardian angel whenever we need one. This is going to be tough because the cliche of the gay man's best friend being his mom has never been more true. She was my go-to. If I had a bad day, I'd pull out the phone, 244-5848. If I had a good day, 244-5848. If I just needed a phone hug, 244-5848. Or more recently, contact favorites, Mom. So I missed her so much that while writing this, I had to put the first couple drafts aside because I couldn't get through it. So I'm occupying myself with a little different, going a different way with it, and to distract myself. I'm going to do a crossword puzzle while I do this. Crosswords were something that Mom and I and Dad would also do pretty often. Sitting in the living room, each with our own puzzle. Mom and I were usually world of puzzles, and Dad would do the one on the paper. Although on this day she was using the paper. So here goes, world of puzzles, and we all know how much she loved a pencil. One across, 6 letters. Sayers is sleuth. I got it, whimsy. Whimsy. Mom's sense of humor was very whimsical. Funny and gentle, she loved to laugh and to smile. She found a childlike joy in many of the most normal things. That blowing bubbles picture that we used on the invitation was an extraordinary interpretation of her. Captured her perfectly. Her bathroom was a myriad of frogs. Who else decorates their bathroom with frogs? She loved to make those around her smile. When the kids would come to town, we'd alternate taking her to her favorite stores. The Hallmark store and Michael's, and One World Goods and the Beach Shop, and then whoever drew the short straw would have to take her to the dreaded Christmas tree shop. She could spend long periods of time in these places, usually looking for gifts. She'd get engaged and we'd wander away only to hear her chortling at some kooky craft kit or some silly birthday card. She was always looking for something to bring to someone or a smile to someone else's face. I miss getting her frequent cards in the mail, stamped on the back with that mouse hugging the olive that said, Olive you. Okay, back to the puzzle. 2 down, 8 letters, a particular rate in banking. Interest. Mom got interested in things, and when she got interested. Fundraising for the Monroe Y, she'd sit at the dining room table night after night during the pledge period, calling and recalling until everyone she had reached and most likely gotten a pledge from, every person in her deck. She went back to college to get a degree in horticulture when she was in her late 40s, and no surprise, she was at the top of her class, which led to her working at Canal Village Florist and being a Monroe County Master Gardener phone volunteer. Focused, even listening to music. We never had background music in our house, and I once asked her why she didn't play the piano or play the radio or mute when she was, making something in the kitchen or cleaning the house, and she thought of it for a second. She said, because when the music is playing, I have to sit down and listen to the music. And it was true. She was so focused, she would sit down, she would put an LP on that old stereo in the living room, and she would sit down with the liner notes or the lyric book and just listen. So when you called her, you knew she was listening. She was always interested in what was up. She wanted, whether it was seeing a show or spending time with one of my friends. I found myself thinking, in the middle of things, I can't wait to talk to Mom about this. Mom is going to love hearing about this. And I'm still breaking myself of the habit of picking out the perfect postcard while at the interactive Van Gogh exhibit or this last summer's trip to Gettysburg, or pulling out my phone just to say that I'd had dinner with David and Henry. She just wanted to know it all. 11 across, 6 letters. Australian penal colony, blank bay. Well, that's easy, botany. Mom had a way with plants like no one I've ever seen. Houseplants and flowers, yes. She was kind of like the sun. She'd walk into the room and all the plants would perk up a little and turn towards her. Her background garden was a wonder to behold every season of the year. Did anyone, I know some of you, I know Karen, we would take her to the conservatory garden at the New York, at the conservatory in Harlan Park, and she would ooh and ah in every room. We'd walk over to a plant, mumbling the name in Latin to herself without cheating at the little card. But I think it was trees she loved most. She thought of them as friends. She talked to them. She'd touch their bark. She'd stroke their leaves. There's a weeping plum tree on the corner of Commonwealth and Chelmsford that she commented on just about every time we walked by. Every time we drive by, she would comment on it. There was a giant beach standing on the south lawn at Sonnenberg Gardens in Canandaigua, and Mom would set out across the yard, that big lawn, to visit every single time she went. I remember when I was just a kid and we visited Colonial Williamsburg, and on the village green, there was a particularly old gnarled tree. And I heard her walk over and she said to it, she put her hand on the trunk and she goes, "I bet you have some stories to tell, don't you?" She truly felt awe and I think a strange connectedness with all of nature. 17 across, 9 letters. Jamie Lee Curtis Chiller. Oh, Halloween. No one had more fun on Halloween than Mom. When we were kids, she'd have hot dogs and baked bean suppers for all of the neighborhood kids, and then we'd all go trick-or-treating together. And later, as the kids got older, she'd dress up as herself and, of course, make Dad dress up too, and fashion herself as the Witch of Branford Road. Even after moving to St. John's, Bill would take she and Dad over they'd dress up and go over to Branford, and they would go trick-or-treating at the Bonds and the Wormuths and the Steinbrenners. Now, she wasn't into any of the scary parts of Halloween, like myself, thank goodness, which was fun. She was into the creative parts. Clever costumes, funny ways that people carved pumpkins, the folks who would turn their entire yards into displays. She loved the unabashed use of imagination. There would always be some kind of Halloween craft. In fact, there was usually a craft project with most holidays. There were gourd jack-o'-lanterns and pom-pom snowmen, and of course the Easter eggs, carefully pin-poked at both ends and blown out and then decorated. Mom's creations were always playful and funny and very imaginative, but not all of her creativity was so carefree. Her watercolors were serious and beautiful. She developed real skill in her painting, and last November, we 4 kids spread all of her paintings out on the ping pong table in Carrie's basement. And there were so many. There were many that I had never seen before. There were still lifes and renderings from Sanibel and views of Darts Lake and Big Moose Lake. It was just clear that she loved having a paintbrush in her hand. 20 down, 12 letters. Missouri, birthplace of Harry Truman. This one's harder. Independence. Mom would display this. Mom would probably downplay this, but she was the definition of independence. You probably all heard stories of her growing up in a very wealthy family with servants and a governess who was our wonderful extra grandmother Bunny. She went to boarding school and told her father unequivocally she was not going to have a debut. She met my dad in a wartime story that is plucked right from the Hallmark Channel. And she did the unexpected. She moved away from her important family to make her family important. Mom had to learn to cook, something she'd never done before. She learned to sew and keep a budget and maintain a house while Dad was working, all with 3 kids under the age of 6. The kids had piano lessons and swimming lessons. Vacations were usually to Rye or Rome, Skinny Atlas, Syracuse. In the late 50s, she found that her spiritual needs weren't being met by the church she'd been attending, and completely separate from Dad, she looked elsewhere. Finding Unity, at that time a tiny congregation in an old gray Victorian on this property. As mentioned earlier, in the 1970s, she went back to school to learn more about botany, and she and the other more mature women in their class even joined the other students that year, driving 2 vans down to Daytona Beach for spring break. She did hate that she had to dress up and be Mrs. Bank president. Although she handled that crowd with grace and charm. But yeah, she always did what she wanted, but she was also a natural at doing the things she had to do. So with this last clue, I realized that the puzzle wasn't that distracting. Because for me, Mom is imbued in everything and everywhere. But she's here today. 24 across, 9 letters. The quality of being thankful. Well, gratitude. That's Mom in a nutshell. Mom's mantra for life was to be thankful for the blessings around her, and she found those blessings everywhere. One morning during breakfast, she went to the sink and looked over at me and said, "Isn't running water wonderful?" She found joy in a Susie Zoo frog illustration, which now hangs in my bathroom. and a gnarled old tree. She loved going to the Rochester Philharmonic and listening to conductor Ward Stair explain what to listen for in Brahms' First Symphony. And then she whispered to me how cute he was in jeans and a black polo. And to the great-grandchildren, I have to admit that Ward Stair's picture was also hanging next to her dining room table. I'm just saying. She loved the natural beauty and the extended family at Camp Gorham and at the Waldheim. She found happiness going to the Y and the library and the zoo and to Panera on Saturday mornings and coming here to Unity. She adored the people in her life, her folks, her brothers, my dad, her kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, her friends and neighbors. But most of all, I think she just loved living her life. She always tried to look forward. She truly looked forward. Even at the end, I think she was looking forward to whatever was next. So looking around this congregation, many of her blessings, all of you are here. And for that, I'm so grateful. And she would want us to follow her lead and be grateful for all we have and to look forward.
Helen is going to lead us in one of Peela's favorite songs.
Well, Rich mentioned that Mom loved the frogs, and she always had frogs everywhere. She had ceramic frogs and stuffed frogs and little tiny frog stickers, and in her bathroom she had pictures of the old froggy, old antique pictures of frogs. And probably many of you have given her a frog during her life because everybody knew she loved frogs. Anyway, this next song that we're going to do was sung by Kermit the Frog. So, that kind of made it really appropriate for Mom, besides which it's fabulous song, and Mary and Rich and Bill are going to help me sing it.
And sing along.
We all know this
Lyrics are
song.
there. You all know it.
Thank you, Jane.
The prayer for protection is a prayer that has been used in Unity since the Second World War, when people asked Unity to write a prayer that they could say for their loved ones who were fighting in the war and those who were at home. And since then, it's gone all over the world, literally, and it was taken to the moon. So we say this at the end of each service in unity, and I'd like to have us say it 2 times today. In the first one, I'd like to say it for Peela. So think of her as you knew her. Let us think of saying this prayer to her and for her with our true devotion. And please say it with me. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. And now let's say the prayer again, this time for ourselves. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And our last hymn will be the peace song, or Let There Be Peace on Earth. It's in your hymnal, number 3. This is a staple in Unity churches. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. We thank all of you for being here. It's wonderful that all the seats were taken. I think that's just great. And I know that Peela is looking down upon this gathering and just her heart very full, as ours are too. I would just like to remind you that everybody is invited to a memorial reception, and it's at Buckland Park, 1341 Westfall Road. And if you didn't get one already, out on the counter, there's a map with directions on how to get there. And there also was a little gift for you, a prayer card with a picture of Peela and the prayer of protection on the back. So you're invited to take these both with you when you go. Our closing prayer is, we give thanks to divine love for bringing Peela into the world. We give thanks for the radiance of her soul. We give thanks for the love and beauty which she shared with so many. And now we bless her in her ongoing. And we see her walking into the light for many wonderful new adventures. Thank you, God. Amen. This ceremony is complete. See you soon.